Greenville County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Canebrake Drive. I think I might have a death. Walked into my fiancee's house. She wouldn't answer my call. It was a very weird smell, and I can't get her to come around. I told her if I ever, what should I do?
Is she breathing?
No.
And we're going to start CPR, sir.
Okay, I think she's gone.
You think she's gone?
Yeah. It's like somebody might have shot in the back. I don't know. I don't
Somebody
know.
has shot her? Okay. All right.
I don't know.
And tell me why you think she's dead.
So she won't respond. She got her eyes open.
Eyes are open? All right.
There's a lot of blood.
And a lot of blood. Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like somebody may have broke in and shot her in the head.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I understand.
You pull that out.
Okay.
Over here now.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
Get some.
Greenville County 911. State your location. I'm at the drive. There is a body here. I entered my partner's residence. She's unresponsive. A bizarre odor lingers, and I can't wake her. Can she be saved? What did I do? Is there a pulse? No. Sir, we must initiate chest compressions immediately. Understood. You believe she's deceased? I suspected a gunshot wound. I truly don't know. Why do you suspect death? She won't move. Her eyes are frozen open. The blood is everywhere. Just a massive amount of blood. It looks like a home invasion. A shot to the head. Perhaps. I'm uncertain. I apologize. Please repeat that. Dispatch units now. Officers swarmed 1-222 Canebrake, finding Bradley Post pacing frantically outside. As the first officer arrived, his face betrayed his terror. How did you enter? You must come home now. It's an emergency. Return home. She had a morning interview and had come back. I messaged her repeatedly since 9 o'clock. Her tracker stopped. I came to check. Silence. The rear door is never locked, so I entered through the back. A chemical pesticide-like scent hit me. Inside, things were disturbed. A torn rose lay there. In the living room, I found her prone. There was a staggering amount of blood. Is this your residence? No. Do you stay here? Yes. I'm with her almost every day. Understood. Please remain exactly where you are. He detailed 41-year-old Christina Parcel's final hours and her last known movements to the police. Detectives pressed for information. He stepped back inside, confronting the horrific carnage within their home. Sheriff's Department, I detect a scent. Do you see the victim? An odor is present. Hold the right. I'll sweep the left side. Her feet are right ahead. Investigators moved through, witnessing a scene of absolute nightmare. A detective spotted Christina's motionless feet. She lay silent in a pool of crimson. Copy. We are securing the residence now. Sheriff's Office. Take that side. I'll clear this one. Sheriff's Department. As investigators prepared to finish the sweep, a chilling detail stopped them cold. Crimson rose petals were scattered everywhere, a beautiful, haunting contrast to the violence. This is disturbing. A sharp chemical stench competed with the heavy metallic smell of blood. Overwhelmed by the fumes, the detectives retreated to the fresh air, awaiting forensics to determine the trauma. Let's evacuate. That odor is toxic. Lock it down. This isn't a natural death. I have to go. Can you return immediately? Is the homeowner? Is she deceased? Unconfirmed. I'm not a medic. This was your partner? She was my fiancée. What was her name? Christina Lorraine Parcel. She hadn't been shot. She had been stabbed 35 times. She was engaged to 65-year-old Bradley Post, sharing the home with his sister and 8-year-old Ida Mello. Detectives were stunned. The scene was unlike any prior homicide investigation. Those scattered petals cast a macabre, psychological shadow over the entire crime scene. Was this a lover's tribute, a cryptic message, or a calculated piece of theater? The scene was grim. There only led Christina's morning visit to a local veterinary clinic. Surveillance footage confirmed she had been there, though the visit was notably brief. Christina's sister reported that the morning interview concluded without incident, noting that nothing appeared out of the ordinary. A new development surfaced shortly after. At 9:07 a.m., a residential security camera captured Christina's vehicle passing a neighbor's house. Without a primary suspect, detectives scrutinized the individual who discovered the scene and placed the 911 call, her fiancé, Bradley Post. I am telling you now, the person you need to watch is John Mello. As the inquiry deepened, the name of Christina's former partner, John Mello, became a central point of interest. Their 6-year history culminated in the birth of their daughter Ida in 2012. However, stability was fleeting. By the time the child turned 3, the foundation of their relationship had completely fractured. A A relentless legal battle for custody followed, ending in 2016 with John being awarded full parental rights. In the ensuing years, John launched a series of aggressive accusations, alleging that Christina was involved in narcotics, sex work, and domestic maltreatment. Investigators found no physical proof to support his claims, though John himself faced legal trouble for stalking and harassment. While those specific charges were eventually dropped, the air between them remained thick with toxic resentment. Around 2018, my daughter complained about her mother and Bradley, claiming they forced her to share their bed and other inappropriate things. It felt wrong, so I took the matter to the Greenville County Sheriff's Office to file a formal report. By 2020, Christina had successfully petitioned the court to expand her visitation schedule. On the day of their scheduled reunion, John sent a chilling text claiming he had abruptly taken Ida out of the country. Panic-stricken, Christina launched a desperate search, reaching out repeatedly and even visiting the girl's school in person. She discovered John had already withdrawn Ida from classes. He later messaged her, vowing to erase Christina from their daughter's life forever. Eventually, a breakthrough came via social media, where Christina spotted a photo John posted near a billboard that confirmed he had fled to Italy. I have always feared for my child's safety, which is exactly why I chose to leave the United States. I have spent years watching her mother act as a monstrous individual. I provided the evidence, but some people simply refused to see it. I ensured the custody agreement granted me total freedom of movement, requiring no outside consent to travel. The legal documents were clear. The mother possesses absolutely zero custodial rights over our daughter. Christina traveled to Italy twice, and after a 6-month international standoff, a hearing was finally convened. Italian officials eventually intervened, allowing Christina to bring Ida home after ruling that John had illegally bypassed her limited parental rights. The relief of their homecoming was short-lived, as Christina and her inner circle began receiving anonymous, threatening mail. The envelopes contained explicit, private photographs from her past relationship with John. Included was a digital mock-up implying she was advertising herself as an escort on a commercial sex website. My goal was simple. When we returned to court in the States, I wanted the judge to see her true character. If you possess digital proof that your opponent in a custody battle is moonlighting as a prostitute, you ensure the court sees it. Absolutely. I intended to use every bit of that information against her. Christina remained convinced that John was the architect. Authorities traced the return addresses to Tennessee and Greenville, suggesting the sender was operating from within American borders. This created a jurisdictional puzzle, as John was purportedly living thousands of miles away in Europe. Despite the distance, the volatile history between them led investigators to believe John was pulling the strings from afar. This theory was echoed by Bradley, who frequently reminded police that John Mello was a man of hidden, dangerous depths. He cautioned the detectives from day one that the ex-husband was capable of a level of malice no one else could conceive. Yet, as Bradley kept the focus on a man across the Atlantic, the police began quietly re-evaluating the man standing in the room. The man is a bully and a common criminal, but I am starting to feel uneasy about the direction of this conversation. I am not sure I should say anything else. I want to assist, but if I am being targeted, I need to stop. On the surface, Bradley appeared to be the model of a grieving, cooperative partner. He surrendered his mobile device and provided consistent answers to every inquiry without a moment of hesitation. Every electronic record supported his alibi, yet detectives knew that a polished exterior can often mask a predatory interior. His physical appearance was particularly striking. He seemed remarkably composed and untouched by the chaos of the scene. Dressed in a crisp white shirt, slacks, and a blazer, he looked more like a man headed to dinner than someone who had just committed a brutal act. He finalized the waiver and voluntarily surrendered his digital credentials. Detecting anything significant seemed unlikely, yet the discovery shifted the entire trajectory of the case. Detectives inadvertently uncovered a fragment of proof that did more than merely startle the team. It shook their core. The nature of the files was deeply unsettling, leading to immediate felony charges involving the exploitation of a minor. The sheer recklessness of his cooperation was staggering, as if he were oblivious to the gravity of the evidence he was exposing. A conviction on these charges would likely ensure he never sees the outside of a cell again. Judicial records detailed a massive archive of illicit, age-restricted content stored across his personal electronics. Ironically, the individual who was nearly dismissed as a suspect had personally provided the keys to his own lifelong incarceration. The forensic sweep further exposed a fractured and dangerous domestic setting within the household. Authorities seized narcotics from the residence, raising dark questions about the welfare of the young girl living under that roof. Despite the severity of these new charges, Post was cleared of the homicide. His location was accounted for, and forensics pointed elsewhere. The slaying dominated the news cycle, yet the perpetrator seemed to have dissolved into thin air without a trace. Even the most meticulous predator leaves a digital footprint, and this killer was no exception to that rule. The breakthrough originated from a neighboring property where a high-sensitivity surveillance system sat silently recording the street. At exactly 9:15, a white Ford Explorer appears, just as a shadowed figure ascends the porch and enters the home. The grainy footage captures the distinct texture of a gray sweatshirt worn by the intruder. Clad in dark trousers, the suspect's lean frame is visible as he crosses the threshold to execute a calculated act of violence. A patchwork of local security feeds began to assemble a haunting chronological sequence of the morning's events. A camera further down the block catches a lone cyclist pedaling a dark-framed bicycle away from the scene. Dressed entirely in black and obscured by a medical mask, the figure is seen fleeing the area at precisely 9:27. Just 60 seconds later, the same individual is tracked passing another residence, maintaining a steady pace on the black bike. The digital evidence provided more than just a description of the fleeing suspect's clothing and path. It effectively exonerated the initial targets. By analyzing the visual data from around the neighborhood, a new profile emerged. Detectives identified the assailant as a tall, slender male with remarkably upright posture who utilized a bicycle for transport. It became glaringly obvious that Post's physical build was a complete mismatch for the agile figure seen on the footage. Meanwhile, John Mello was confirmed to be in Italy, making his physical presence at the front door a literal impossibility. With the primary suspects dismissed, the trail went cold, leaving investigators staring at a seemingly impenetrable wall. However, John's complicated past with the victim meant the shadow of suspicion never truly lifted from those near him. Tasked with finding a connection, the team began scrutinizing every associate linked to the inner circle. A breakthrough emerged through a witness named Michael Manigault, a domestic worker for Mello. Manigault, however, did not fit the physical profile. The surveillance clearly depicted a Caucasian male, while Manigault was African American, ruling him out as the cyclist. Yet, during his interrogation, Manigault provided a lead that proved far more significant than any personal alibi. He identified a man named Zachary Hughes and described his habitual movements and a vehicle seen roughly 10 days prior. He mentioned an aging pickup truck, a detail that immediately caught the investigators' attention. The focus shifted to 33-year-old Zachary Hughes, whose background revealed a profile that defied every criminal stereotype. Hughes was a classically trained pianist from Juilliard who was known for performing in the public squares of Greenville. Without so much as a minor traffic violation to his name, he was the embodiment of the unlikely suspect. Manigault's mention of the white truck gave detectives a specific target to hunt within the city's traffic data. It took only moments for a technological breakthrough to link the musician to the scene of the crime. Greenville's automated scanning network provided the undeniable evidence needed to tie Zachary to the homicide. A high-resolution image showed his vehicle entering the city center with a black bicycle stowed in the rear. The bike was an identical match, from the specific curve of the handlebars to its unique frame geometry. Every detail, including the brake configuration, aligned perfectly. It was the forensic equivalent of hitting the jackpot. Utilizing this intelligence, the focus narrowed exclusively to Zachary Hughes, identifying him as the cyclist fleeing the Cambridge district. When the tactical team arrived at his home with a warrant on November 3, 2021, they were met with a discovery that would become the most chilling chapter of the entire investigation. Zachary emerged with an eerie composure, seemingly prepared for the encounter. He raised his palms, retreated toward the waiting patrol cars, and submitted to the officers without a word of protest. No questions were asked. He didn't inquire about the nature of their visit or the sudden police presence on his doorstep. This level of control felt unnatural, bordering on the robotic. It wasn't long before a search of the grounds yielded a discovery that would link him inextricably to the crime. Within a separate garage on the premises, investigators located a pickup truck. Resting in the bed was the precise bicycle captured in the incriminating surveillance footage. The vehicle had been meticulously scrubbed clean just before the authorities managed to seize it. It was in flawless, near-perfect condition. Detectives brought him in for questioning, yet the legal threshold for a formal murder charge hadn't been met. Still, they weren't about to let a prime suspect vanish. A DNA swab was obtained, with the forensic team hoping for a match against biological material recovered from the victim's defensive wounds. As the lab work began, the investigation pivoted to explore a critical psychological component of the case. The true depth of the bond between Zachary and John was under scrutiny. John maintained their paths first crossed in August 2020. According to his account, they were preparing for a permanent move to Italy when they encountered him busking on a public street. After his performance, a brief introduction led to a request for Claire de Lune. He played the piece beautifully, leaving a lasting impression. They crossed paths again days later at a different park. Following a lengthy conversation, they traded contact details, and the interaction seemingly ended there. Shortly after that second meeting, the family departed for Europe. John insisted they lost touch during his months abroad, claiming they only reconnected after his legal defeat in the bitter custody war over young Ida. To investigators, the timing appeared far too convenient to be a mere coincidence. John scoffed at the theory, questioning why a man of his standing would sacrifice his entire future for nothing. He described him as a man of immense heart and questioned any possible motive. However, the hidden layers of their relationship told a different story. Despite John's claim that they were practically strangers, records showed Zachary traveled to Italy in May 2021 to visit him, just months before the murder. The authorities viewed this not as a fleeting friendship, but as a calculated alliance. During that European stay, the two spent extensive time together, immersed in rehearsals and shared activities. John praised his intellect and charm, yet when asked if his friend had ever met the victim, he was adamant. He claimed there was never a single occasion where their worlds would have collided. Detectives, however, were certain a meeting had occurred and were prepared to present evidence that shattered that narrative. The definitive proof required to seal the case was found beneath the victim's own fingernails. Christina's final struggle provided the silent testimony needed to convict. The forensic report confirmed that the DNA belonged to Zach Hughes. With a scientific match in hand, the state finally secured a warrant for his arrest. He chose to surrender voluntarily. To the veteran detectives, he was an anomaly. Most killers don't arrive at the station wearing tailored suits. The sight of a refined pianist in handcuffs was jarring. He remained motionless, offering nothing. There was no hostility, only a haunting lack of emotion as he was processed and moved into a holding cell. A central mystery lingered. What could drive a celebrated local talent, a Juilliard-trained virtuoso with a clean record, to commit such a savage act? The arrest sent shockwaves through the local arts community. At his initial hearing, the gallery was packed with loyalists who found the allegations utterly impossible to reconcile with the man they knew. One supporter spoke with maternal conviction, insisting that he was incapable of such a heinous crime. On February 11, 2025, 3 years after the brutal slaying, the prosecution finally laid out its case in the county courthouse. The victim had been trapped in a high-stakes, toxic custody battle with her former partner, John Mello. The state argued that Zach Hughes had inserted himself into this domestic conflict at the direct request of John. The prosecution's opening was blunt. They intended to prove that Hughes was nothing less than a cold-blooded assassin. Tension peaked when Bradley Post was called to testify, appearing not as a participant, but as the man who discovered the horror. He recounted ringing the front bell to no response before entering through the rear, only to find the scene inside. He described finding her on the floor, surrounded by a staggering amount of blood that filled the room. The medical examiner's report was so graphic it visibly rattled those sitting in the courtroom. The victim had suffered 35 distinct sharp force wounds. The nature of the lacerations was consistent with a high-intensity attack carried out with a fixed blade. A specific detail caught the investigator's eye, a jagged, broken thumbnail. It was a clear, tragic indicator of a desperate fight for survival. In the somber courtroom, prosecutors presented digital evidence capable of pivoting the entire trial. After John Mello's Italian departure, he and Zachary maintained contact via WhatsApp. When Christina returned with Ida, their log surged with 1,700 messages retrieved from Zachary's mobile device. Despite attempts to wipe the encrypted threads, forensic experts successfully recovered the hidden data. Fragmented but incriminating, one transmission from John Mello surfaced, cryptically referencing harassment and the digits 5142. The text suggested an exit strategy, likely identifying Christina through her phone's final digits 5142. He essentially ordered a relentless campaign of intimidation against her. Amidst the data, investigators uncovered a secondary thread sent mere hours after Christina Parcel's murder at precisely 2:53 p.m. The text spoke of completion. Mello's peculiar inquiry regarding their musical research progress felt deeply suspicious to detectives. They suspected this artistic project was a linguistic mask for the hit. To police, the music theme felt like a sinister code regarding the assassination's success, yet Mello's explanation remained jarringly nonchalant. He dismissed the exchange as a mundane conversation between two artists refining their work. Yet, the trial's most staggering revelation came from the defendant himself. Zachary testified with a blunt, unprompted confession. This was no mere statement. It was a comprehensive acknowledgement of his lethal actions. Asked if he ended Christina Parcel's life, he answered affirmatively, sounding eerily as if he had rehearsed the admission. He confirmed sending multiple mailers throughout June and July of the year 2021. When pressed on these facts, he offered a simple, chilling confirmation. He aimed to expose Christina to groups like the Garnettum, claiming she posed a severe threat to her own child. He was then asked to recount his actions upon reaching the residence. He described dropping his bicycle, approaching the door with a bouquet of roses, and pressing the chime. When a woman appeared, he fabricated a delivery for her sister, Christina Parcel. He offered the flowers before brandishing a revolver, forcing her back inside while demanding absolute silence. A desperate struggle followed, during which the roses fell, scattering petals and stems across the floor. He then drew a concealed blade, delivering a relentless series of stabs to the victim. The assault continued until they both collapsed, only stopping once her resistance finally ceased. Beyond the confession, he unleashed a torrent of specific details regarding the slaying. He ignored judicial restrictions to paint a dark, unflattering portrait of the woman he had just killed. Zachary claimed he initially sought legal help, reporting alleged mistreatment to various social service agencies. When those efforts stalled, he convinced himself that taking a life was his only remaining path. He believed the act ensured the child's safety, alleging that the government was actively suppressing evidence of maternal abuse. The judge eventually intervened, commanding the defendant to stop his inflammatory commentary. However, Zachary wasn't finished. He proceeded to implicate his supposed accomplice, John Mello. He alleged Mello offered $10,000 for the hit, creating a dramatic moment seldom seen in real courts. Zachary claimed he told John that no financial incentive could ever persuade him to commit such an act. He stated he would only intervene if he were certain the child's survival depended on Christina's death. In his twisted logic, rescuing the girl required the permanent removal of Christina Parcel. The defense argued that a confession alone didn't mandate a murder conviction, requiring proof of premeditated malice. Additional revelations emerged in court that attempted to provide a motive for Zachary's extreme actions. By August 2022, nearly a year after the tragedy, a new legal front opened. A lawsuit alleged that Bradley Post and Christina had documented the exploitation of a young family acquaintance. More disturbingly, the filing claimed Christina, as the child's guardian, was complicit in this betrayal. She was accused of witnessing the acts and assisting Bradley in storing the illicit digital files. Prosecutors countered that even extreme provocation did not justify the calculated brutality of the defendant's crimes. Ultimately, the jury rejected this vigilante narrative, returning a unanimous verdict of guilty for the charge of murder. After deliberating for fewer than 3 hours, the final judgment was officially read. Zachary Hughes will spend eternity behind bars. Judges issued consecutive life sentences for the homicide and burglary, plus 5 years for the blade. It defies logic how 30 stab wounds could be inflicted during a struggle without a heart poisoned by absolute malice. He acted as judge and jury, assuming a divine right to decide who lives and who dies. On February 20th, 2025, John Mello was indicted for masterminding the hit and soliciting murder. He remains in custody, his fate resting on an upcoming trial. At the heart of the wreckage sat a child whose mother was stolen by a scheme her father orchestrated. Family court mandates placed Ida under the temporary custody of John Mello's friends. A mother's desperate shield for her child resulted in total devastation and a fractured, incomplete version of justice. Investigators probed Zachary's statements, but found zero proof the child faced any immediate danger. His allegations were scrutinized, yet failed to trigger any further legal proceedings. The high cost of a twisted justice. In the quiet corners of our communities, where families should find sanctuary, a chilling darkness can sometimes take root. The tragic end of Christina Parcel is more than just a headline. It is a profound warning about the fragility of peace when human hearts are poisoned by resentment. Obsession is a thief. It stole the sanity of a father, the future of a gifted musician, and the life of a mother. When we allow domestic conflicts and old wounds to become battlegrounds for revenge, we lose sight of the most vulnerable soul caught in the crossfire, the child. There is no rescue in a scheme that leaves a daughter with her mother in a grave and her father in a cell. This case serves as a stark reminder that vigilante justice is a dangerous delusion. No one possesses the divine right to decide who lives and who dies. True protection for the innocent isn't found at the edge of a blade or in a calculated betrayal. It is found in the integrity of our laws and the strength to choose healing over destruction. Let this be a lesson. Behind every perfectly executed plan of malice lies a legacy of wreckage. Choose compassion, respect the sanctity of life, and never let pride become the architect of a child's devastation.